Hi, Professor and class. My name is Nicholas Walsh Davis, and I am doing chapter 14 on personality disorder and deviant behavior. So I'll be just going over a brief overview of the chapter and the important highlights that I feel are important. Anyway. So, chapter 14, personality disorder and deviant behavior. The concept of personality disorder is defined by the APA and the DSM-4 as a personality disorder is an enduring pattern of inner experience and behavior that deviates markedly from the expectations of the individual's culture, is pervasive and inflexible, has an onset in adolescence or early childhood, is stable over time, and leads to distress or impairment. The DSM-4 lists 10 specific syndromes of patterns of personality disorder, and they are grouped into 3 different categories. Cluster A includes paranoid, schizoid, and schizotypal. Cluster B includes antisocial, borderline, histrionic, and narcissistic. Cluster C includes avoidant, dependent, and obsessive compulsive. Disorders should not be confused with personality traits, also noted within the DSM-4. Thresholds for personality disorder is largely dependent on the individual's biographic and sociocultural environment, such as gender, age, ethnicity, the socioeconomic status, and their cultural norms. Examples is an East Asian self-effacing is a virtue, and in the USA, the self-assertion is selfish. So, varies from culture to culture. What is normal in one culture may be considered deviant in another. Deviant behavior, according to the personality disorders or mental disorders, need to be investigated in relations to social structure and cultural norms. Deviant behavior is employed by a larger conceptual and analytical framework. Deviant behavior usually covers types of crimes, mental disorders, suicide, alcoholism, drug addiction, and sexual deviance. The concept of deviance is enormously diverse and relative to cultural, society, individual, situation, and time. And Jerry L. Simmons' experiment on the public opinion of stereotypes helped generalize from the study, deviance is socially created by labeling. So we do what we do best and label. Go humans. There is no universal definition of deviance at this time. And now, what is deviant behavior? Deviance is an absolute attribute. In the 20th century, sociologists regarded deviance as a physical illness. However, very few scholars accepted this social pathological definition, and social norms are culturally and situationally relative. Deviance as a social myth. According to the absolutist view, deviance is extremely objective. Deviance is extremely objective and dogmatic, while the complete opposite view of deviance is extremely subjective and relativistic. Definitions are not primarily based on objective facts or situations, but are subjective perceptions or interpretations. An example, it is not that reality itself, but one's idea of the reality. So my normal is not your normal, to put it simply. The 2 most commonly accepted definitions of deviance today are normative and reactive definitions. Deviance as abnormal behavior is the normative definition. The normative definition deals with 2 conceptual levels of social norms, the cultural universal and cultural specifics. John Honigman defined deviance as abnormal behavior as abnormal in a general sense designates any and all deviant behavior that fails to conform to norms in some specific social system or that transgresses approved limits. Deviance can also be positive. An example is someone who is saint-like, a do-gooder, overachiever. The normative definition focuses on the abnormal behavior that violates social norms and is subjective to negative sanctions. Finally, the normative definition is by far the most commonly accepted by sociologists. However, it has a built-in problem, and that is the diverse meanings of quote-unquote normalcy. Common concepts of normalcy are statistical, biological, physical, psychological, and sociocultural. The audience reactive definition or reaction definition is is also known as deviance as a labeling process. The labeling perspective has advanced the reactive definition in itself. Deviance, like beauty, is in the eyes of the beholder. If there's no real act, there is no deviant behavior. If there's no label, then there's no deviant behavior. To use the label, behavior must occur. To understand the behavior, the label deviant must be used. Deviance is not a sudden event, but a social process. Part 1 is the primary deviance. This refers to the actual behavior of violating social norms. Part 2 is the secondary deviance, and that's when the primary deviant accepts the deviant identity and role. The progression from part 1 to part 2 is largely facilitated by the labeling process. Again, deviance as a social process. Criticisms on this labeling theory. 1, theory does not explain the cause of deviance. 2, labeling does not necessarily cause secondary deviance. And 3, secondary deviance can occur without labeling. And 4, the theory is class biased. The next question is, why deviance? Why does it happen? Why does it occur? This goes in the text back to the Columbine shootings and other school shootings. The question is why? Why does it happen? And the text provides many plausible answers, but it can be grouped into 3 different categories: biological, psychological, and socio-cultural factors. So the biological factors include the genes are important, but they must interact with the physical and social environment in order to survive. And 2, scientists emphasize on the interaction between the brain, behavior, and environment. The psychological factors include causes of personality disorder are due to dysfunctional or pathological socialization of the individuals in their childhood or early adolescence. Antisocial personality disorder also is a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others that begins in childhood or early adolescence and continues into adulthood. Finally, for the psychological factors, is the DSM-4 does not elaborate on the etiology of antisocial personality disorder, but offers some epidemiology. The social cultural factors. These include quite a bit, but they start off with that the cultural violence reflects the indisputable social factor that violence, let's start over. Sociological factors, the cultural violence reflects the indisputable social factor that violence has become a pervasive way of life, affecting not only poverty-stricken and crime-ridden inner-city neighborhoods, but also the suburban middle-class neighborhoods. 2, or B, traditional values and social norms are constantly challenged due to the exponential rate of global development and technological culture. C, positive deviance has been highly valued as individual uniqueness and independence, the hallmark of invention and creativity. This has led the United States of America to be the largest producer of Nobel Prize winners for creativity. Also makes us the most open society, receiving almost 1 million immigrants annually. We have the most liberal gun laws. We do have the highest divorce rates, and we produce the highest homicide rates. Every culture has a mixed bag of good and not so good, as explained in the text. Sorry, I'm not going to edit that. Main problem with the culture of conformity is its vulnerability to the blind obedience to totalitarian dictatorship. Say that 3 times fast. Today's generation has become increasingly desensitized to this culture of social separation and existential alienation. Anime is becoming normalized. Structural sources include social malintegration, social disorganization, and social pathology. And cultural sources include cultural psychiatry and social psychiatry. Recent indication of renewed interest in the sociological culture and cross-cultural psychiatry. And finally, underneath, again, social cultural factors of why deviance happens is a relentless cultural critique is long overdue to reverse the process of normalization and diffusion of anime in America. So again, that's just a brief overview of chapter 14, which is the personality disorder and deviant behavior. It's actually quite interesting. If you had time to read the entire chapter, hope you do so. Thanks for listening and take care.